The United States is moving its chess pieces closer to Iran in an attempt to trap the opposition. Over the past 24 hours, more than 50 US fighter jets have reportedly been moved towards West Asia. And these aren't ordinary aircraft. They are some of the most advanced machines in America's military arsenal. F-35 stealth fighters, F-22 Raptors, and F-16s. Along with them, several refueling planes have also been reportedly spotted. And that detail matters because refueling aircraft are not just for show. They allow fighter jets to fly longer missions, striking targets further away without the need to land. According to open source flight tracking data, there's been heavy movement of US air power towards bases in both Europe and West Asia over recent days. And the buildup isn't only in the skies. President Donald Trump has already sent the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln into the Arabian Sea. And reports now suggest that America has deployed around 12 ships in West Asia across several bases, including 2 destroyers capable of long-range missile strikes. All of this is happening while the US and Iran are also sitting across the table, holding nuclear talks in Geneva. The US wants Iran to give up its nuclear enrichment, one way or the other, which Tehran says is strictly for civilian purposes.
Iran has consistently pursued a strategy aimed at the peaceful use of nuclear energy, while demonstrating readiness to address any concerns regarding the nature of its nuclear program and to ensure its exclusively peaceful character. It was on this basis that Iran entered into nuclear negotiations and has continued until very today. A review of the course of these negotiations speaks volumes. The Islamic Republic of Iran has consistently affirmed that it neither seeks to manufacture nor to acquire nuclear weapons, which have no place whatsoever in Iran's national security doctrine.
Well, talks in Geneva were held behind closed doors, and after they wrapped up, Iran said that both sides agreed on guiding principles. But US Vice President J.D. Vance says Tehran has still not accepted all of Washington's red lines. Iran's foreign minister says a detailed proposal to bridge the remaining gaps will be presented in the next 2 weeks. But the Iran-US relationship, diplomacy rarely stands alone. It usually arrives with pressure, and Trump has been threatening military action against Iran for weeks now. He's also hinted at regime change. Iran, too, is sending a message. It's now joining with Russia to conduct naval drills in the Sea of Oman tomorrow. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued 3 warnings aimed directly at Washington yesterday. First, he said the US will never be able to eliminate Iran. He then referred to America's naval deployments near Iran, warning that Tehran can sink them.
It seems to them that, and the U.S. president keeps saying this, the U.S. Army is the strongest army in the world. The strongest army in the world may sometimes get slapped so hard that it cannot stand up straight.
Well, in the end, this isn't just diplomacy, because when fighter jets take their positions, this game of chess could turn deadly. Well, for more on this now, we have with us Simon Mabon, who's a professor of international politics. He's joining us live from Lancaster in the UK. Welcome to the program. So put simply, just how significant is this US military build-up, do you feel?
Well, I think there's 2 ways of reading this, really. The first is that this is all about sending a message to Iran. It's about posturing. It's about signifying strength at a time when the negotiations are going on or when they're continuing, but they're continuing under the sort of the broad specter of a possible US strike. And that is clearly designed to put pressure on Iran, to ratchet up the pressure, and to really try and make it so that the negotiations go in favor of the US rather than the Iranians. So that would be the first one, to say that this is more about a sort of a symbolic posturing, if you will. Whereas the second one pertains to a more worrying scenario, which is to say, look, the US isn't really serious about diplomacy and that it is just readying itself for a strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that is a deeply worrying conclusion to reach. It's not one that I've reached as yet, but it's one that a lot of people are very anxious about, myself included.
Well, given what you say there, I mean, despite all this, I mean, to what extent is there still a chance to avoid a military confrontation?
Well, there's certainly a chance to avoid a confrontation. There's certainly opportunities. The fact that the two sides are embroiled in talks and are continuing the talks, this will be a third round of dialogue, a third round of talks between the Americans and the Iranians. And that, I think, is a positive sign. As long as the talks continue, there is a hope that a deal can be reached. And if a deal can be reached, then, according to all parties, we would avoid the possibility of a military escalation and a military conflict. But if we don't see a deal, if we don't see the talks continuing, if the proposal put forward by the Iranians is not deemed satisfactory by the Americans, and that's when the anxieties really come to the fore once more. There is a lot of firepower in the Arabian Peninsula right now, in the various seas around Iran. So it's a very worrying time, but there is a chance to avoid a war.
And with that worrying time, as you say, I mean, if the talks should fail, what might the consequences be for the region and indeed beyond?
Well, the Middle East is a key strategic point for a number of different reasons. Of course, we have the sale and distribution of natural resources, oil and gas, for example, that travel through the Persian Gulf, through the Strait of Hormuz and onto the sort of global markets. We have global supply chains that feature heavily within the Gulf. We've got huge ports in Dubai and in the UAE more broadly that are prominent within global supply chains. And so all of this means that if there is a ratcheting up of tensions, if there is a conflict, then the capacity for it to affect people around the world is very clear, be it in terms of the cost of fuel, the cost of gas, or indeed the cost of goods that are produced in other parts of the world and then distributed through global supply chains. So there's a lot of scope for that to reverberate. But I would also say that the states in the Gulf, states in the Middle East are working very, very hard to try and put pressure on the Americans not to strike Iran. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, the Kuwaitis, none of them want to see Iran decimated by another military strike. None of them want to see regional instability. And so we know that their officials have been working back-channel lines of communication to try and urge the Americans to make a deal and not to engage in a strike. And I think that's got to be the way to go. Try and find a way of making a deal.
Simon Mabon, we'll leave it there. We appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Power doesn't end quietly. Some deaths are not accidents. They are messages. A gunshot, a crowd, a country frozen. The killer disappears. The questions don't. This is not just about who died. It's about what followed. Governments fell. Armies moved. History rewrote itself. 5 leaders. 5 moments. One pattern. The assassination.